The story I'm about to read to you is from Gerrit Hofstede's book, and it is of particular relevance to people who are interviewing with companies that are headquartered in other countries, and also to students from other countries who are interviewing with companies here in the US. So this is Gerrit Hofstede talking. As a young Dutch engineer, I once applied for a junior management job with an American engineering company, which recently had settled in Flanders, the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium. I was well qualified, with a degree from the senior technical university of the country, good grades, a record of active participation in student associations, and 3 years' experience as an engineer with a well-known, although somewhat sleepy, Dutch company. I had written a short letter indicating my interest in providing some vital personal data. I was invited to appear in person, and after a long train ride, I sat facing the American plant manager. I behaved politely and modestly, as I knew an applicant should, and waited for the other man to ask the usual questions which would enable him to find out how qualified I was. To my surprise, he asked very few of the things that I thought should be discussed. Instead, he wanted to know some highly detailed facts about my experience in tool design, using English words I did not know, and the relevance of which escaped me. Those were things I could learn within a week once I worked there. After half an hour of painful misunderstandings, he said, "Sorry, we need a first-class man." And I was out on the street. Years later, I was the interviewer, and I saw both Dutch and American applicants. Then I understood what had gone wrong in that earlier case. American applicants, to Dutch eyes, oversell themselves. Their CVs are worded in superlatives, mentioning every degree, grade, award, and membership to demonstrate their outstanding qualities. During the interview, they try to behave assertively, promising things they are very unlikely to realize, like learning the local language in a few months. Dutch applicants, in American eyes, undersell themselves. They write modest and usually short CVs, counting on the interviewer to find out by asking how good they really are. They expect an interest in their social and extracurricular activities during their studies. They are very careful not to be seen as braggarts and not to make promises they are absolutely not absolutely sure they can fulfill. American interviewers know how to interpret American CVs and interviews, and they tend to discount the information provided. Dutch interviewers, accustomed to Dutch applicants, tend to upgrade the information. The scenario for cross-cultural misunderstandings is quite clear. To an uninitiated American interviewer, an uninitiated Dutch applicant comes across as a sucker. To an uninitiated Dutch interviewer, an uninitiated American applicant comes across as a braggart. Dutch and American societies are reasonably similar on the dimensions of power distance and individualism, but they differ considerably on a third dimension, which opposes, among other things, the desirability of assertive behavior against the desirability of modest behavior. I will label it masculinity versus femininity. And as you recall from class, I relabeled it competitive versus cooperative. And so if you're in a situation where you're interviewing with someone from a different culture, from a country that is of a different culture, first do some research. Find out what culture you're meeting with, and then you can say right out to the interviewer, I did some research and I understand that most CVs and most interviews from folks who live in this country tend to do X, and I want to make sure I don't come across as a braggart. Or if you're from another country and cooperativeness is more important in your culture than competitiveness, you can say straight out to the American interviewer, I have been taught in my culture to be very careful not to appear as a braggart, and yet I know that when Americans are being interviewed, they do everything they can to sell themselves. Can you give me an idea of what you're expecting in an interview? I hope that helps.